Fazbear Frights, the Puppet Carver. This is the best book that's ever been written. Everybody loves it. It's amazing. Everyone can agree. Okay, but I didn't mind this first story. I've read the first story in the book by now, and I kinda liked it. There's been so much hate towards it because the cover actually never shows up in the book. None of the characters there do, which is weird. But I still liked this story, even if the cover's a bit out of place. I think that's just because it was a bit hard to make a cover for this story. At least one that doesn't, spoil everything. This story also features someone who we've seen before, and who I actually wasn't expecting to come back. Someone who a lot of people didn't like, but I think this story actually does better than the story it was originally in. But let's get into the story, and I'll tell you what I think, and we'll talk about this. Leave any thoughts you have in the comments, because I'm puzzling over this. I'm trying to figure out what it means. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. So the story follows Jack, and Jack owns a pizzeria. It's got animatronic characters, but not the normal ones we know. It's got a pig and a bear. His name is Baron Von Bear. Wish we could see a design for this guy, but we don't really have one. And a pig with a banjo, who is probably supposed to be a reference to Pig Patch, everybody's favorite character. And the pizzeria is doing really badly right now, and because of that, Jack has been really angry and grumpy for as long as anyone can remember. But one of his employees, well, I guess technically two of his employees, they have an idea to change this. One of them's working on a novel, and I've forgotten these characters' names already. I don't care enough to look it up. One of them's writing a novel called The Puppet Carver, and throughout the story we get to see little snippets of this story that he's writing, so it's kind of meta. It's about a puppet named Sylvester. And Sylvester is a puppet that was created to work and to serve, and he has most human, senses. He has all of them except for touch and taste. And his whole life, basically, he wants to learn what it feels like to touch. And so, one day, he goes to this character called the Fixer. We never really get to see the Fixer, we never really get to know what the Fixer's like. But the Fixer basically gives him a sense of touch, and now, in the end of the story, he can enjoy all the things of life that people can. And it's a very nice story, very, kind of pointless at first, it seems. It doesn't seem to connect to the main story that much, but it does towards the end when you start to realize how it connects. The other one of Jack's employees is making a machine called the Puppet Carver. You can see how confusing this could get. The machine is called the Puppet Carver, the book is called the Puppet Carver, and the story, which all of this is in, is called the Puppet Carver. The machine is actually named based on the book, The Puppet Carver, that he's writing. It's all very confusing. There's 3 things named the Puppet Carver, so I'll try and be really specific. And this machine is basically made to produce animatronics at a low cost. It makes them out of wood, and it supposedly can just crank them out, which is really advanced, but Jack doesn't really seem to care. And so Porter tells Jack, you know what? I have this machine that's going to turn business around, it's going to make this place thrive, and you won't have to spend so much money on animatronics anymore. And Jack is very grumpy as normal, but he agrees to this presentation, and so there's this big moment where he's going to turn on the machine and make an animatronic purely out of wood in an instant, and it doesn't work, and wood is shot out of the machine all over the restaurant. And Jack is furious, so at that very moment he gets them to clean it all up, and after they clean it all up, he tells them that they're all fired. So Jack is obviously a really bad guy, and at this point you really don't like him much, but there are a few moments in the story where we actually see things from his perspective, and we see him actually go home, and he sees he has a rough relationship with his wife, with his kid. His kid gets into a car accident, and Jack, instead of asking him, are you okay? What happened? He gets mad that the repairs are going to cost money. So Jack's not a nice character, but this at least gives us a bit more of a perspective into his life and into why he is the way he is. But yeah, anyway, he fires all his employees, and now he's in even more of a rage than before. And so late at night, now he's basically the only employee at his restaurant, and he's cleaning up around the place. They managed to get everything cleaned up before opening, so, they had a couple customers come by. And now he goes up to the Puppet Carver, and basically he goes inside the machine because he hears a ticking noise, and he's not sure what that is. Never explained, so I guess that's that. Out of curiosity, he goes inside it, which is very, very dumb. And all of a sudden, the machine turns on. And from my knowledge, it doesn't ever explain why the machine turns on. But now these blades are coming towards Jack, and they're probably gonna kill him. and he's scared, but once he's in the machine and these blades are coming around him and they're going to cut him up, miraculously a banging sound is heard, and all of a sudden he is fine. The machine turns off miraculously, and just like that, now he's decided he's going to be a nicer person to everyone. He's going to be a great guy. He's going to be so kind. And he makes up with his wife and with his kid, and he makes up with his employees. He tells them they're all rehired. And as he's going to buy donuts for them to apologize to them, it's a start, it's a way to kind of apologize. He's on his way to buy donuts, and he hears a sloshing noise coming from behind him, and this is where things start to get interesting. This sloshing noise is a pink goo. It's from a pink goo. And it seems like this is the Faz Goo from the story He Told Me Everything that everyone hated. He Told Me Everything was really weird because it was about this pink Faz Goo that clones kids or something. These kids are in high school, they're in the science club, and it's a weird culty thing, and the story ends with our main character, Chris, no connection, getting turned into a clone because of this Faz Goo. It's really weird, it's really bizarre. Apart from the Faz name, it doesn't have anything to do with FNAF, much like this story, but I always thought it probably has to mean something more, I just had no idea what. This gives us a bit more of an insight into what this thing means and why it exists, because this thing is chasing after Jack. And so he runs through a parking garage, through an abandoned office building. He's trying to get away from this thing until he ends up in an office. He's cornered. This thing is coming through the window, through the door, and he has no way out. And the thing touches him, and all of a sudden he feels unimaginable pain. Unimaginable pain. Not physical pain, but pain about what he's caused for everyone. He feels bad, really, really bad apparently, about being so mean to everyone. And then it cuts to a couple days later, a couple weeks. It seems to be a fair amount of time because now business is actually booming. Now Jack is actually a very nice person, as he was telling himself he was going to be. His employees are all rehired, business is going well, there's lots of customers, and everything seems happy. Until the story takes another interesting turn. See, it wasn't quite clear. It isn't quite clear when you're reading, but it almost feels like the scene switches without telling you the scene is switching. It goes from this happy dream scenario of everyone happy and Jack happy and business going well, and it doesn't tell you the scene switches, but it cuts to Porter, the guy who made the Puppet Carver machine, and he wants to make a new and improved version to impress Jack. Although the tone immediately shifts. It almost feels like we go back to before Jack was a nicer person, to back when he was a mean person, and basically before or around the time he got stuck in the Puppet Carver. I can't quite place why it feels this way, but everything just suddenly feels more off. And Porter is going to make a new version of this machine because he says it didn't work. Which is weird because if business is booming, you would assume that the machine did get working. Apparently, it didn't though. The machine is still faulty, it's still not working. Almost like we've gone back, and like the things that we just experienced, this happy dream scenario, didn't actually happen and might have actually been a dream. Maybe I'm looking too much into this, I'm not sure, but that's what it seemed like to me. And so Porter smells a funny smell coming from the machine, and he takes out the waste tray, and he sees a bizarre clump of Faz Goo. Now there's two scenarios here, okay? The first one is that, yes, everything went fine, and Porter just found some remnants of this Faz Goo here, and we still have no idea of what it is. Everyone's happy, and he just throws out the last of the Faz Goo and gets to work on a new machine. End of story. The other scenario is that what happened to Jack was some sort of illusion. It did seem like what was going on was too good to be true. It's like the end of Bunny Call, where Bob learns to appreciate his family and his kids again, only to realize that there's a bit of a darker twist at the end. My hypothesis for this story, The Puppet Carver, is that Jack was taken over by the Faz Goo, just like Chris was in He Told Me Everything. In He Told Me Everything, supposedly no one could really tell the two Chris's apart, but they noticed something was, a bit off, just like here. Jack is very different, but nobody thinks that he's been replaced or something crazy like that. I think that Jack was taken over by the Faz Goo, and that this whole dream scenario, maybe it's real, or maybe it's in the old Jack's head. Maybe he's in some sort of comatose state where he's imagining this in his head as he's slowly dying, or as this thing is taking over, becoming a clone of him. It's hard to say. Because if I remember correctly, something like that happened in He Told Me Everything. Didn't Chris start to hallucinate? Maybe not, I'm not sure. I don't think so, actually. But it's odd. It seems like something happened to Jack. This sudden character change is just really weird. And I know that's what they're going for, but then with them with Porter finding the Faz Goo in the end again, it really seems like they're teasing that not everything is as it seems here. And with the fact that the Faz Goo is returning again, I feel like this is going to be a recurring thing. It might even show up in Security Breach. It might have something to do with the overarching story here with the Stitch Wraith. It was weird in the first story it showed up in, but I think I'm starting to make sense of what this thing is. Overall, I like this story, actually. I wasn't expecting to after everything I read, but I honestly really enjoyed it. And I think that there is a lot to be enjoyed here. Sure, maybe I wish it was a bit more FNAF related, but whatever, I don't know. I've mentioned this before, but at some point the series has to branch out, and it feels like that's what it's doing. It's not sticking to animatronics anymore, it's moving on to something else. Maybe the transition could have been a bit smoother, but I like it. I enjoyed this story. Hopefully we get some more FNAF-related stuff in the coming stories. But other than that, I don't know, I like the story. Let me know what you guys think, because I'm curious if you have some other theories or some way to disprove mine, because I have no idea if it's right. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next story, which I believe is called Jump for Tickets, and apparently is another bad one, but we'll see what I think. See you guys. Bye-bye.